Hello, welcome back to another video. In this video, as you could tell by the title, we are going to be talking about XP and milestones in Dungeons & Dragons. The argument whether or not to use milestones or experience points has been around for quite some time, and a lot of people say one is better than the other. So without further ado, let's get into the topic of what you should use, XP or milestones. Starting with experience, or XP, XP is really good if you're trying to have a more traditional RPG experience with your players. If you're trying to go for something like World of Warcraft, where your party goes out, clears a cave or a dungeon, and comes back with a large amount of XP or even a level up, that is one way of doing things. You go out, you slay out, you come back, you have lots of XP, lots of treasure, and overall, it is just a traditional experience. Some of the problems that arise from using XP is, say, you're going through a tower of a mad mage, an evil mage. You kill several hundreds of their minions, you do puzzles and battle, and you finally meet the evil mage and you slay them, and then you're 100 XP away from leveling up. It's not very satisfying, as you could imagine, that, you made it all the way up there, you did all of this, but you need to go all the way back down and punch a goblin in the face like 3 times just to get your level up. Also, the XP system promotes going out of your way to kill things. It doesn't leave a lot of room to solve things peacefully unless your dungeon master, opts to use their own rules for XP. It can be relatively unsatisfying in some situations. In contrast, milestones. Milestones are great, especially for campaigns who have less of a focus on combat, or the combat it does have is usually very story-centric, very important, big villain, big story arc for one of your characters, etc. Since you level up on story beats rather than a systematic RPG, killing goblins, getting XP sort of thing. And since you level up at your dungeon master's discretion, going up that tower of the evil mage and slaying them would presumably lead to a level up. Of course, this is where the problem of milestones comes in, is it is at the discretion of the dungeon master. You could argue that XP is technically also at the discretion of the dungeon master, but as long as you're killing things in Dungeons & Dragons, as long as you're going through caves and dungeons and doing the dungeon thing, you are gaining XP. You could technically go through several dungeons and not level up in the milestone system, so it just depends if your dungeon master is willing to give you a level up at specific moments in time. And if you are the dungeon master, attempt to level up your party when they really feel like they should. If they, slayed a dragon, if they went through a really big dungeon, maybe not just like a small one, just a really big one with lots of powerful undead or demons, give them a level up. You don't have to be super stingy with leveling up. What I've just mentioned is typically the most common complaint of milestones, is having to rely solely on the DM to give you permission to level up. Although, it is a good way for the dungeon master to keep things scaled, right? Maybe they don't want you to be, level 8 just yet. Maybe they have something prepared before you get that ability. Milestones really do incentivize roleplay, as in comparison to XP, where it's more of a combat-focused system. So, depending upon how you want to run your campaign or a series of one-shots, just consider, are we going to be doing a lot of combat? Or what do my players want? They want an RPG, World of Warcraft kind of setting? Or do they want to, go through a story-driven milestone sort of game? All in all, communicate with your players and try to figure out which system will work best for all of you. Try not to leave, one player in the dirt. Maybe they want to do milestones, but everyone else wants to do XP. Because there are ways to mix the system. Just a couple of examples. Let's go back to the mage situation again. Say the mage was very important and you're using milestones. They level up after killing the mage, but you don't really have a whole lot of heavy story arcs or villains after that. Maybe temporarily swap to a XP system starting from 0 XP at, say, level 14, and have them do a couple of miscellaneous dungeons while you work out the next villain or major event. Or, sort of the inverse of this, why not award XP for good roleplay? Say, a conversation between the party and the king and his men has led to the prevention of a war, saving millions of lives. Why not award a good chunk of XP for having such an important conversation with royalty, someone so important? In a way, it's like slaying a villain, but instead you are slaying the possibility of war. There are lots of ways to get creative with your leveling system, so I encourage you as a player or dungeon master, talk about it with your players or your dungeon master. There are lots of fun ways to experience leveling in Dungeons & Dragons that it doesn't have to be either or. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope this was insightful. I hope that this was... I already said insightful, so I don't know what else to put here. I hope, like I said, this helps. I will see you in the next video. Adios.